Good day, and welcome to the Baraminology Quest channel, where we explore created kinds in scripture, science, and society. I am your host, Todd Elder, and in this episode we answer the question, are ring species evidence of evolution? Before I give the short answer to the question, let's begin with a short definition. Ring species are an evolutionary concept in which a series of connected populations of one species spread around a geographic barrier wherein the neighboring populations are capable of interbreeding, but the distant populations are incapable of interbreeding. And it is also a concept with no known examples. Therefore, the answer is no. Without any data to support this hypothesis, it is not evidence of evolution. The long answer is a little more complex. The concept of a ring species actually has a long history. If a timeline is constructed, it begins with Charles Darwin, who wrote about incipient species, stating that, "I believe a well-marked variety may be justly called an incipient species," and that it need not be supposed that all varieties or incipient species necessarily attain the rank of species, basically stating that varieties are expected to become species over time. By 1905, the basic concepts were in place and presented by David Jordan. This concept took solid shape when Ernst Mayr described them as circular overlaps in 1942. Finally, in 1954, Arthur Kane brought out the more popular phrase, ring species. During the last century, a number of candidate animals and plants have been suggested as being ring species. The most likely candidates were the Ensatina salamanders, the Larus gulls, the greenish warbler, the crimson rosella parrot, and the Caribbean slipper spurge. More recently, in his book, The Ancestors' Tales, Richard Dawkins gave a summary stating ring species are only showing us in the spatial dimension something that must always happen in the time dimension. So, what is expected to be seen in a ring species? Well, first, a species will approach a large geographic barrier and then split into two continuous grades of populations. As the population spread, each clade acquires new traits. Slowly, they form a ring around the geographic barrier. During this time, genes can flow from one population to the next. Yet, it is anticipated that when the clades come back together, the ends will not be able to interbreed. This concept actually poses many problems for the definition of a species. On one hand, they are all able to hybridize with neighboring populations, which make them all one species. But at the same time, they cannot hybridize at the ends, which make them two separate species. It would also make a tremendous show of Darwinian-style evolution, because it would not just create two species from diverging lines, but do so without complete reproductive isolation, which is typically thought to be needed. During the last 20 years, much laboratory and field research has been done, and the results have not been good for this concept. So where does the ring species concept fail? On multiple points. Ring species are supposed to interbreed with neighboring populations. With recent genetic studies, it has been found that sometimes this does not happen at all, and in other cases, it has been found to happen way too much. Even worse, the end populations that should not be able to interbreed have been found to interbreed, not just in a laboratory, but in the wild and with fertile offspring. In fact, the general pattern has been that the end species merge back together rather than diverge, the exact opposite of what is needed for this concept. Even more surprising is that the studies and journal publications stating that these candidate species do not meet the qualifications for ring species come from evolutionary supporting scientists and journals. So if we go back to our timeline, we can add the research at the end with the evidence going against ring species thus far. In summary, if we look at the concept and the current results, we see that 1. A species should settle around a geographic barrier. And yes, we do see that happen. 2. The subspecies share genetic material. Well, sometimes this does not happen, sometimes it happens, and sometimes it happens too much. So that is kind of a yes and no answer. Most importantly, number 3, the merging ends cannot interbreed. Well, no, this has not been witnessed. And so we have a century-old concept with no support, and it is something that should not be used as evidence for anything, including evolution. Thank you for watching another episode of Baraminology Quest. If you want more information on this or other topics, you can purchase my book, visit the website at www.baraminology.net, or leave a comment below.